I'm clicking the go live button. It is time. Where did my notes go? Found them. Pulling up the notes. Here we go. Weekly scrap number 170. It is Mega Scrap Charlie. Bottom line is this. I had decided I was not going to do any more Mega Scraps because the hassle of trying to wrangle firefighter schedules and get multiple people on and everything else was not worth. But the vigilantes said, no, man, they're awesome. They're super valuable. Please do them. So Mega Scrap Charlie is here. It is all about water delivery, engine attack packages, nozzles, flow. Here we are. Steve Robertson, Jerry Herbst, Brian Brush. If you've got engine questions, you got attack package questions, look no further than Mega Scrap Charlie. All right, here's the intros. Stretching for Success, 33 years, most of it in Columbus, Ohio. Steve Robertson, my man. He is here to talk.
What's up, guys?
Jerry Herbst, 43 years in the fire service. He's certified. He has the certs. He's published. He has all the articles. He is a subject matter expert for evaluating and developing effective attack packages. Absolutely welcome, my brother.
Thank you, bro.
And last but not least, with the most famous mom in the American fire service, he has over 25 years on the job, in love with his wife for more than 20 years, father of 3 amazing kids, and he is fueled by coffee and hugs. It is my pleasure to have all 3 of you on for this evening. Welcome to Mega Scrap Charlie.
Appreciate the opportunity to be here.
I am looking
forward to it.
Go ahead.
Don't speak for me, Brian. It's just one of many times tonight, I'm sure. Go ahead.
All right. Oh, shit, son. That's a quote. Smoothbore Cartel opened up with that.
That's Kyle.
Hey, guys. Kyle? Good evening.
Yeah, there's no mic drop. It's nozzle drop tonight. It's no drop.
What a crew. Amazing group of some of the best instructors in the country. That comes from Todd Edwards. Jeff Sohn said, all caps, boom, water gods. I'm trying to read there's so many flying by. Oh my word, look at this panel from Gus Salcido. Yeah, everybody. This Mega Scrap is going to be, and I got to say this right, huge. Hashtag engine wins. Huge.
Hey, Corley.
Yes.
Because of your group and your reach with this, can we throw out a challenge to start the night?
I'm excited. I'm trepidatious and excited all at once.
Well, there was a challenge thrown out today in memory of Charles Swank, who unfortunately passed away at H-Rock. Through his GoFundMe, Fallen Firefighter Charles Swank Memorial Fund. You can find it through a lot of Facebook pages, but there was a challenge today to donate $82 as a nod to his time with the 82nd Airborne, where he was awarded the Bronze Star as a combat veteran. Washington Township Firefighter, Central Ohio Fools president. It would be great if groups out there, individuals or firehouses listening tonight could round up $82 to donate to Charles Swank and show his wife and 5 children the support and love of the fire service.
Unbelievably good idea, brother. Absolutely.
Behind that, that's the Screaming Eagle.
Anybody? Go ahead.
I just real quick, I was with some folks from the Fools, had dinner with tonight from Central Ohio Fools, and everybody's hurting in Central Ohio. Charles, just a great guy, super active in the Fools, super active in every training you went to. It's absolutely tragic, and there's not a lot to say except we got 5 kids and a family to take care of, and that's what we need to do.
Absolutely. Audience, if someone can get me a link to the GoFundMe, message me on Facebook. Or message it to Kyle, Smoothbore Cartel. I will pin it to the chat, and people can find it and click on it and go to it. Random people audience can't post links. I'm sorry, the spammers, I can't figure out a better way than just ban links. But if you get me the link, I will post it, and we will make that happen. $82, honoring Charles Swank, 82nd Airborne, GoFundMe. Someone get me the link. All right, go ahead. Yeah, discombobulated. Brian Brush throwing curveballs. Awesome curveball, by the way. Is there anything I missed? Anything you would like to add to your introductions or what we're talking about tonight?
Let's scrap.
Let me throw something out. It's amazing. I've done things like this in the past, and we obviously got brass tacks, hard facts, and all that type of stuff. But when we got a forum like this that goes live, and the interaction from the people that are watching. That's the protein that drives these discussions. And just coming off HROC, let me just say this, when we're all together, it's rare we're all together at the same event, but a thing like HROC or Water on the Fire, we are. And, what we go through in that week just leaves us so pumped on the subject matter. You could not have timed this better than you have. We were doing some sideways stuff down there. Most people don't know when we're at a Pensacola conference, a lot of times while people are in lectures, we're out doing weird stuff, with the people that make nozzles and hose and, the A-list of the instructor world. So, get the questions coming in, it's these weird sideways things, these alternative things, these approaches to an effective fire stream that they come from conversations like this. And then all of a sudden, they become a thing. So pump the questions. Let's get it going. Let's rock.
No, beautiful. And Jerry, thank you for calling it. Because the audience is really what drives the scrap. And when you guys bring great questions, this unbelievable panel here can absolutely knock those questions out of the park. And so I've got the link pinned. It is Help the Family of the Fallen Brother Firefighter Charles Swank. It is the link to countyfiretactics.com. But you should be able to find it from there. It's linked in the chat. So everybody look for that. Okay. Back on track. Housekeeping. Everybody, please, like Jerry said, Kyle Romagus is here. He is looking for your questions. He is curating those questions. He is sending them to the laptop so that we can ask those questions of the panel. So please take advantage of that. And here we go. Housekeeping, and then we're off to the races. This episode is brought to you by Key Hose. Check them out on Facebook. Key Hose, the hose experts. MV Fire Rescue. For quality and realistic training, check them out at mvfirerescuetx.com. Affordable Drill Towers, firefighter owned and operated. The only thing you can't do on an affordable drill tower is live fire. Affordable Drill Tower, you can rappel, stretch hose lines, go through the stairs, go through the floor, do window bailouts, cut holes in roof props, use the apartment balconies, pump into the FDC or flow water from the sprinkler system. Man, call Steve, 844-55-TOWER, or drop an email to info@affordabledrilltowers.com. And finally, Passion for the Craft, LLC. Based out of North Carolina, it's a hands-on and a lecture-based training organization committed to bringing realistic and affordable hands-on training and conferences. For more information, visit passionforthecraftfc.com. As well as find them on Facebook and Instagram. Register for their next event today. I actually went and registered for their conference in October of next year. And so anyway, let me mute my phone because there are a lot of people sending the link. Okay. Housekeeping is done. We're off to the races. Everybody's excited.
One comment on your housekeeping there. It was great. Shout out to Steve, but I noticed you didn't attempt the pronunciation of his last name.
I always say, hey, Sanguiducci. I can do it. Is I close?
Close enough. Just say it fast.
Corley, it's an East
Coast thing.
It's an East Coast thing.
Okay.
You got to understand how the New York metropolitan area. I'm from Jersey. I grew up just outside of the city. It's its own vernacular. It's a thing. He
actually sent me the phonetic pronunciation of it one time, but it's been too long, so I just say Steve is my man. So 844-55-TOWER. Okay. This first question, to kick off the warm-up question, so to speak, kind of the soft toss, Vigilante Tony Nunez asked this question. He said, how did you become so involved in water work? Was it a calling at some point, or did something happen along your career? And I'm going to start off with Steve with this one and say, how did you get involved in the water work?
I think it started like way back when I was the guy on the end of the inch and a half, or early in my career, and then inch and three-quarter, and you were either getting beat up or you were getting lifted off the ground. So once you figure that out and you realize, and this, I think secondly to that is just great mentors. I was so blessed in my career to work for great bosses. Bob Clow, God rest his soul, my first super good engine lieutenant, he demanded excellence. It wasn't just know your job. You had to know more than your job. You had to be better than good. And that rubs off real quick. And then when I started getting around guys like Ray McCormick and Another mentor of mine that's absolutely changed my career of how deep I dive into things. Guys like Jerry Herbst and Andy Plotkin. I've known Andy for 30 years, who's always been into water. And I think I've always been that guy that wants to know why. And the more I dug into it, the more questions I had, the deeper I wanted to dive. So I think it all starts with, finding the lane you're supposed to be in. And for me, that was engine work, right? And secondly, it's having the right mentors to get you going in the right direction with vetted information from vetted folks, right? Like this isn't opinion-based stuff. It's not. I can have an opinion on what I like, but truly vetting the information for your package is what matters. And that's where I think that's where it started for me, was just really good mentors.
Nice. Jerry.
Probably more as something to alleviate pain. Anybody that's doing this, I don't care whether you're a career, volunteer, combination, whatever, everybody that's doing this for a period of time has got pushed out of a fire. And anybody that's doing it for a long time has gone through the evolution of what's changed and what is on fire, and the heat release rates, which are ridiculous now compared to what they were. So, yeah, I mean, I go back as far as the red line, 1.5 inches, and, my supercharged, Santa Rosa nozzle, beautiful chrome plated piece of brass that it was. We unfortunately, if you were thumbprinted early, you were thumbprinted with pressure, not a flow consciousness. So, how I evolved into being an engine guy from a need for a discipline, I think more than anything, was most people don't ask the questions. I'm a question asker. I'm an evaluator internally. I'll watch a lot. I listen a lot. My personal experiences were, there was times I was getting my butt hands made. We were just, I thought at first we were doing it wrong. But, sooner or later you realize it might have been a people problem. It was a combination problem because you had an engineering equipment problem. I've been on long enough where I've seen that evolution to go from that booster to what it is today, and the fire to go from what it is to today. And if you don't capture it as a penchant or, something that you want to be passionate about, it'll remind you that you should have. That's what drove me to it.
I love it.
One other thing, you'd be surprised on the circuit of instructors how many engine instructors actually spent most of their time on a truck. And people look at that and they're like, why? Well, where's the truck normally operate? Ahead of the line and above the fire. So they need to have a vested interest in what happens on the nozzle. So, so it's broad based, but that was what drove me. It was some painful mistakes early on that, we could be better.
Absolutely. I love it.
Yeah.
Brian.
Man, I mean, it's hard to avoid it. It's the core of what we do. It's hard to have a fire department sign out front and not have an engine in the bay. You can dismiss it as simple, or you can dive into it. And I think I just kind of dove into it. And a lot of that was starting out at West Metro. You're an excited kid. You're getting exposed to all kinds of things, and you're kind of wandering around. But then you bump into somebody who, kind of exposes you to some stuff. So back in that day, it was the start of some Fire Nuggets conferences and Fire Nuggets articles. So you got outside of the bubble, and I was fortunate enough to be paired up at Engine 1 at West Metro with Eric Tolan, who now is the captain at Engine 23 in Denver. And, we just kind of started to take a deep dive on nozzles and see what was out there. And thankfully, we had a great support system with Chief McGrail being right there, kind of guiding us through things. And then getting paired up through Fire Nuggets, it was the earliest social network for us, man. It was phone calls and emails and getting in touch with Camilla and Liggins out in Oakland, going through their things. It's just I think it's a prime example of interest being supported has led to 20 years of involvement in the fire service at a high level, whereas it very easily could have been dismissed and crushed. I think Corley, one of your presentations on the two paths of the two firefighters. That's I'm just a lucky one that made it down the right route, man. And I'm thankful for it and try to pour it back into it every day. But I'm still learning engine work for sure. I'm further away from the rigs now, but I'm trying to work organizationally and systemically and with the manufacturers and stuff, because I'm not pulling lines or moving lines as much as I used to.
No, and go ahead. Kyle Romiga said this. He said there are a lot of fire departments out there without trucks. There are none without engines.
That's true. You know, I mean, look what's it say on the front? You know, I mean, you know, the fire service becomes so obsessed with these ancillary responsibilities, and I'm not saying they're not needed. It's, you know, it's high angle, it's rescues, all these other things, but you know, the core of it's engine work. Brian, I'm really surprised you got through that entire thing without the word break apart. But what was it that day?
Is that a surfboard?
My chops for 20 years over one statement, and that's how far back.
I just have to remember it, Brian. You know, that's all.
Wait, Jerry, is that a surfboard above his head? You can't walk across the damn parking lot without breaking yourself, and you have a surfboard? For God's sakes, man, get control. Or is
that's why it's on the wall, bro. That's out of service.
That was the opening warm-up question. Now I've got about 40. Literally, we're approaching 100 comments already, and we've only been talking like for a few minutes about besides the housekeeping and intros. So I'm going to try. You guys ready for the first question coming at you from the audience?
Yeah.
This one comes from Jonathan Brumley. My man. Making a case for a 2.5. Do hybrid, but here, I'm not sure it's about that. I'm just going to say, do hybrid attack packages on standpipes make operations easier, or does it just complicate an already misunderstood operation? So, I don't know who wants to field that question. I'll open it up to the panel. All right, Steve got his hands up, so we'll go from there.
I think that's a very open-ended question. I mean, I can't build your attack package, Corley. I can't do it. It is so dynamic for you. Now, are there parameters to that? Absolutely. But for me to say you need a hybrid package, that doesn't work. Understand that if you build a hybrid, our hybrid package in Columbus is completely different than most people I know. Jerry, do you know anybody doing the same thing we're doing? We have a lead link, 50 foot of 2.5 and 100 foot of 2-inch with 1 inch and a 16 tip. Okay. Yep. For us, that works. And here's why. If we get a commercial high rise, all 3 engines everybody brings everything, right? Can I still put a 2.5 in service on a commercial high rise at 150 feet? Absolutely. If I have just a small 600 square foot apartment, can I put 3 or 4 pieces of 2-inch in and have more than enough water? Absolutely. So to say hybrid packages, period, all this, all that, I think that's to me, that just doesn't work. You have to do you based on your staffing. There's so many factors to that just to say you need a hybrid package. Well, what is that? Right. What is that to you is different to me. That's different to Brian. That's different to Jerry. Philly. Tell them about Philly, Jerry. That's a perfect example of what we're talking about.
So go ahead.
I just, you know, I mean, yeah, I guess I can step up. It's my turn. I've been pretty active in this arena, and I've always been, I won't say hybrid, but a fan of intermediate hose sizes. But in my world, the biggest thing that you can't do is a cut and paste solution that somebody else did without doing the work. And what I mean by that is, an intermediate hose size or a smaller hose size can be the catchphrase of the day, but the entire evaluation has to be, can I do that? Does it increase my mobility and effectiveness of my people based on my staffing without compromising the flow objective of the system, right? Whether the system is a pump or a standpipe, whatever, right? So you have a flow objective. If you can engineer an equipment change to your benefit, whether it be a reduction in water weight, increased mobility in a residential footprint versus a commercial footprint, without compromising the flow objective, that's a win. Unfortunately, without going deep into that and doing the work yourself, what you end up with is a cut and paste solution that maybe worked on Stevie's job, which is, an 1,800, 2,000 man job, that, might not work in, a career department in South Carolina with 3 or 4 stations and 15 guys on the entire shift. You have to find what works for you, but it takes effort to get there. So, to answer Jonathan's, hey, Jonathan, by the way, his question directly, I think intermediate hose sizes are a game changer based on your own world. Otherwise, you have to define what your world is, do a building inventory, find out what you've got. What's your staffing? Are you going to have to push a big line? If so, what's the flow objective? Can you get that flow objective with an intermediate hose? Absolutely. Can you get, 100 plus in water weight, not carry a couple of extra bags of concrete, on the stretch? Absolutely. So from an effective fire stream point, I think alternative or hybrid packages really, really make sense.
Brian.
I think Brumley is baiting us.
To start fighting?
What?
He's trying, isn't he? He's trying to bait it. He dangled it.
Oh, yeah.
He dangled it.
I've always been a purist because I'm a disciple of Chief McGrail, and I'm a big fan of the 2.5 and staying consistent all the way through. But I think, as I've become more informed and as more tools have become available, I think, you not just looking at your building stock, but looking at your department, your organization. If you're all 2.5, keep it simple. You work it. That's great. I think that a hybrid system, using that 2.5 to get you from the outlet to the fire floor when it's going to be stationary in the stairwell anyway, it reduces the friction loss. If you can use a lower friction loss package to save you that elevation loss, man, I'm all for it. If then your makeup is dorm rooms or residential and you want to choke down to a smaller diameter to make the room, the goal is success in the operation. So trimming friction loss on the way up the stairs and then increasing mobility on the way into the room, and do you. But Brumley, thank you for bringing the question to the table. I know you were.
It didn't take long
to see Steve and I boxed it out.
Let me throw one more thing here.
You're looking at like 84 pounds difference of water weight per 100 feet.
It ain't
That's
moving.
legitimate. But that's legitimate when you have staffing issues and it's 1 or 2 people, maybe 3 people on that line. That is something you really have to consider.
Well, at your age, you would, but
hold on, brush. Jerry and I were waiting on water when you were waiting on the bus. So just get that shit straight right now. You were still at the bus stop, and Jerry and I were waiting on water.
Yeah, how's that old OG saying? Got more time waiting for water at the top of the stairs than you got in the firehouse. The hybrid thing comes out of work. Right. It's like, okay, the majority of the potential we have is, a residential footprint. Even look at the cities using a lead length of 2 inch, right? It's to increase mobility in a smaller compartment. In my world, that's all great. They're all got good ideas, but don't cut and paste something that's going to compromise your target flow because it flows with the fire.
Jerry, can I add to that? The innovation, and Jerry was a huge part of this, of the 1/16 tip was an absolute game changer. Getting that flow of 240, that's pretty close to 265, right? You over pump that a little bit, you're right there. You're where you need to be. And personally, I'm going to speak to this, that I haven't been on a fire that I needed 265 to put it out and 240 didn't, right? And then you look at nozzle reaction difference. You look at all the other things compiled. Depending on your demographics, that works. And Jerry was a big part of that 1/16 tip, and it's a game changer on a 2-inch line. You're in that 1 inch, you're at 210. Well, that's pretty damn close to that 185. There's not a big gap there. There's not a lot of benefit for carrying the water weight when I'm only getting 210. That 1/16, the difference between 160 or 185 and 240 is legitimate. Now I have a reason. I have a reason to bring that more weight, because I have more volume.
Yeah, I think the danger of getting caught up in, the copying thing is, as soon as these alternative hose sizes came out, like the 2 1/4 and things like that, the next thing you got somebody posting on social media, oh my God, it sucks for the Ram. Well, it's not to replace the 2.5. Okay, you still need the big line. There, 2.5 and 3 inch is for appliances and things like that. It's solely as it's a handline alternative, and it has to be looked at that way. But there's the cut and paste problem. Somebody said, oh, somebody else did it. It changed their world. And the next, they're putting a 2-inch line on a ram with a 2.5-inch coupling on expected, and they're going to flow 500, and it's going to be, a real easy operation. It doesn't work that way. That's where you got to dig deeper. This whole surface learning approach to things, especially in the hydraulics world, is dangerous. You got to go deeper. You really need to go deeper.
I love it. Okay, quick segue before I throw the next question at you, which is this. There's going to be more mega scraps coming up. I got one planned on building construction that has to do with Rob Fisher and some pervs that run around the country. And then I want to do something on peer support. But I also, I'm reaching out to you guys because you guys all know Dennis Laguerre, Daryl Liggins, but Laguerre, Liggins, and Camilla. I want them to do it.
Oh, dear God.
So, hey, if you put,
You think you're going to have trouble controlling this one?
I put that in there, but Laguerre ignored it. He never responded. So I'm putting the pressure out there. Okay. Here we go. Rob Fisher's the next question. He said the 7/8 has been around for years, decades. Why do you think it went out of popularity whenever it did? Thanks for bringing it back. I'll kick it to Brush and go.
So that was the smoothbore that I knew. I don't know if it would. You'd have to talk to Jerry. Probably have a better understanding of it. But I knew the 7/8 as a smoothbore, kind of a West Coast tip, I guess. If there was a tip on the West Coast or a smoothbore around where I grew up, it was a 7/8. So kind of once I got outside of California, started getting exposed to the fire service, came across the 15/16. It was the FDNY, and truly I kind of always viewed it as, the 7/8 is the 3-person rig, and the 15/16 is the 4 and 5-person rig, and I just kind of simply equated it to that. Of course, if you got more people, you can take more water. I think that the power and influence of the FDNY kind of perpetuated the 15/16. I think a lot of places, because that was the driving factor in the East Coast in general, kind of went with that tip. The tip was born out of the war years. I also think that the proliferation of CAFs systems across the country, and Jerry could also speak to this, I think the preferred tip for CAFs was the 1-inch. They told you that was like the optimum bubble size or whatever. A lot of departments felt that was too much to also flow water out of, so they kind of reduced just down to the 15/16. But I don't think we brought the 7/8 inch back. I think, again, back to Steve and Jerry talking about the science, I think we have found that the sweet spot on the 1 3/4 as far as mobility, water application, we could talk about it all day long. The 7/8 is a full bale nozzle. It's something we can run wide open all the time, and that's really the goal. So I think it's fallen into favor. I know at West Metro, when we went through our nozzle study, it was the preferred tip. A chief at the time decided to go with the 15/16 to flow more water. But I would argue that we probably still were flowing 160 gallons a minute because we weren't able to keep that 185 open all the time.
I'll go Jerry.
Well, I've publicly declared that, I'm a 15/16 inch fan. It's because of where I was born and raised. But, I've taken on. I want as much water as I can possibly carry with me. But I also am a realist. My analogy of CPR. If you've ever been in a classroom or hands-on with me, you'll see CPR. It's either on the board, on a whiteboard, on the wall, whatever. And that's the confidence to pursue reality. And the reality is, the science supports, especially in a residential footprint, a 150 or a 160 is enough. I have a lot of my personal experience, and I'm not here to talk tactics as much as be an SME and fire streams, effective fire streams. There's fires that 25 made a difference for me. We do a lot of 2.5, 3-story wood frame. Those fires can get pretty angry. You're gonna have a good fire in the cellar and burn a roof off, and it's around you the entire time. They both put out fires. It comes down to an evaluation of how your people interact with the fire. I think, the mathematics support it. It's nozzle reaction. 60's easy, 70's hard. 60s a 7/8, 70s, give or take one is a 15/16. So technique is a part of it. I don't think it ever went away and came back. I think it is surfaced as much more popular now because of social media and the exposure to it. A couple key studies that did a comparison between 15/16 and 7/8. And the comparisons were more, it's not, one's flowing more water. It's like go from point A to point B to point C to point D and stay open bail as long as you can. And, they did it with dialed in crews that, had technique. And at the end, they didn't, they looked at the flow meter, how much total water was flowed out of one versus the other. And the bail down time, making angles and stairs and that type of stuff with the 15/16 crew was more so than it was with the 7/8. So the sum total of water flown was higher with the 7/8, which was flowing 25 gallons less per minute. So that you have to go that deep. I mean, just we all, the fire service tends to chase urban standards. And what I mean by that is, it was FDNY's tip. And if you go deep enough back into that history and get into the Freeman ratio and mathematics, FDNY uses 1.88 inch hose, and the fractional half of 1.88 is 0.9375. So they were dead on. It's a 15/16 for that size hose.
Right.
So this whole other thing with the hose has been created, but I don't think it ever went away and came back. I think it's been championed by some people that are very, active on the circuit and active in social media. From my standpoint, if you're over pumping or under pumping, especially to overcome hose issues, that's great as long as you're not compromising target flow. As long as you have a target flow, I don't care whether it's 160 or 85. Most people don't have a target flow. That's where the problem. Get back to the root cause.
Gotcha.
So it takes work. It takes work.
I'll kick it to Steve. Closing.
Yeah, no, I think Jerry started touching on it. I mean, it didn't go away. It's always been there. But I think there's some key players out there early when, engine hasn't been super sexy like it is now. There was several of us teaching engine when it wasn't sexy. And you got to be remiss without talking about Aaron Fields and moving and flowing. I mean, that's when it really started getting teeth again. And then you got Kurt Isaacson pushing it. And then you got, Jerry brought that to light with the social media, Kyle Robigus. And there's a lot of guys that realized if you're going to move and flow effectively, that's much easier to do it with and still get water without shutting the line down. And at the end of the day, like Jerry mentioned, you're probably going to end up flowing more water. And that's what we found with the 2-inch over the 2.5 on the high rise. We weren't closing the bail. So at the end of the day, that 25 gallons a minute you're losing, we were making up at the end of the day because we weren't half throttling, getting inch and a half water, dragging around 2.5-inch water weight because it was over pumped.
Love it. Absolutely love it. And you three, I know you can't see the Facebook comments unless you have a laptop set up or something where you're reading them. When this is over, go back, find the video, and read through the comments because they're amazing. Rob Fisher, Todd Edwards, Kyle Romagus, DJ Stone. There's a ton of people making comments, and it's awesome. I just have,
They're either making comments or making fun of us because we know all three of those guys.
Yeah, it's a complete yes.
It's going to be a combination of both, I'm sure. That's okay.
The answer is yes.
I'm probably one of the few people that made a public declaration of my commitment to the 15/16. So that was on the day of the nozzle, which is not
7/8 day.
No, it's July 8th, which is the day of the nozzle. It is not 7/8 day.
Okay. I gotta get that. I'll get it. Todd Edwards says, and we kind of segued to this because you mentioned 2-inch. Todd Edwards asks, there seems to be more of a renewed interest in 2-inch packages. Pros and cons. I'll kick it off with Steve because I closed with Steve.
Man, it's hard. Pros and cons. Water weight, that's an advantage. Limited staffing. Having the 1 1/16, I think, is a game changer for the 2-inch. Before we had the 1 1/16 tip, you were running a 1-inch smoothbore or you had a 250 and 50 on there. And it was brutal to hold on to. It was like holding on to a 2.5. I think the inch and a 16th gives us a totally different segue to that line. If you had a disadvantage, you've got you're just slightly below a big line, a master stream line, but I'm not seeing a disadvantage other than you can't run rams with it. It's not going to be as effective. Your master stream stuff, it's not as effective. The thing I do like about it, if you're running bundles, you can run a 100-foot bundle with a 2-inch. We do it all the time. Back of my rig's got a 100-foot flat loaded and a 100-foot bundle on top of it. That's our big line that goes into structures. I personally do not take 2.5-inch hand line, 2.5-inch hose into structures anymore, unless it's a trunk line that I'm going to extend off with a 2-inch. And I just grab that 2-inch bundle and extend off of it. And I mean, it's a game changer when you're running with staffing of 3. It's a legit game changer. So disadvantages, the only thing I can really think of is your master stream, your rams, things like that. But the versatility of the water weight and the inch and the 16th tip, I think that's the big upswing where it's come back a bunch.
Back to Brian. What do you think? 2-inch, pros, cons?
The only time I'd pull 2-inch off of a rig would be to throw it in the dumpster.
Okay, you could. How long did it take? All right, 40 minutes. That's not bad.
So anyway, I do see the argument for the 2-inch, but now with the 2 1/4, I think the 2-inch it's just not it's not as impressive of an option. I mean, I think there's not enough gap between the 1 3/4 and the 2-inch when you start looking at it hydraulically, especially when you get in that flow range. Your friction loss is a little high. I think the whole 1.5 or 2.5-inch couplings is confusing. I understand why people went to it when there wasn't the 2 1/4, but now with the quarter, 2.5-inch couplings with that gap, with an 1 1/8 or the 1 16th, I think that the 2 1/4 is a much better option for pretty much all departments in that range in today's world versus a 2-inch. So that's my piece.
I'll kick it back to you, Steve. I like the reaction, but I'm going to Jerry first. We'll kick it back around.
I still think there's a fire for the 2.5, without a doubt. If it's a standpipe, with an open floor plan, clear span, with an open floor plan footprint, I would want a 2.5. I'm not saying it completely replaces. It does not. There's commercial fires I've been at. We're talking about mobility in a smaller compartment or in an environment. You have to evaluate what it is you go to. All right. But this kind of feeds back to the whole hybrid package thing. Do I want both options? Philly was a great example. Philly carries up both. They want a 2.5 option and an 1 3/4 option. So they have multiple companies bringing up both options so they can segue either way based on what the fire presents. I in my work with departments on trials that needed a package that were using, and there's a ton of people using it. They're using 1 1/2 or 1 3/4 off a standpipe, with a combination nozzle of 100 psi or 75 psi, let alone 50. It can be a game changer only because of the mobility versus the flow. Does it replace a 2.5? No, I don't think it does. 2 1/4 is a good happy medium, but to me, it's all about flow. It's flow and mobility. If you're running 6 on an engine in a city, that's great. And you're stacking 2 engines on a line, you can have a body wherever there's a bend in the hose. Hell, whatever you want. Run a freaking nozzle on a 3-inch. But, nobody else in the world works that way unless you have that staffing. So how can I make my people more efficient without compromising the flow objective? And that's where an intermediate hose comes into it. But, I'm not knocking a 2.5. Let me give a shout out to my volunteer house in upstate New York in Greenwich, man. We pull 2.5 frequently. And I'm an advocate of a decent flow difference between your line choices. There's a booster fire and the booster red line is pretty much going away. But, we run a 15/16. We cap it with a lower GPM fog because for car fires and outside fires and things like that, we like that. But when we go in a building, we're flowing at 185. If it's a bigger fire, we run. Brian, I'm going to talk about integrated tips here. Please stay on. We run an integrated 1.25 with an 1.125 adder tip, but we incessantly drill. 1.125 is a mobile offensive move, and if you're stationary, spin a tip and flow some water. We flow 2.5. There's times we're challenged for manpower, and I want that big line. But it comes down to, have you done the work to evaluate your own world? Stop copying and pasting what urban fire companies do. Evaluate it, touch it, feel it, put it in your people's hands. Forget about PowerPoints. Put it in their hands and see if there's an epiphany. If it makes sense, go that direction. But do your research.
I love it. And there were shots fired on the 2-inch. So, Steve, rebuttal.
Yeah, no, the only rebuttal I got is, what's the true inside diameter of the 2-inch line? How close is it to the 225? Do you really think we can't get 265 out of it, Brian? Because we can.
Call it what it is, Steve. Call it what it is, Steve.
I just say it though, right? But it's true. It's like it's not that far off of 225.
No.
So, I think
how stiff
when we
how
I think we're splitting hairs there is what I'm saying. Like if you like 225, get 225, but don't come at me with you can't get that water out of a 2-inch, because we know we can. Because it's not 2-inch hose, it's bigger than that. We all know that. So
it's
the flow is the flow.
It's how it's going to behave. I mean, we just went through a trial with 1.5, a backdoor thing down at Atrock, with the objective, can it flow this? Yeah, well, sure, the hose can, but is it manageable at that point? What's happening at the nozzle position?
And it wasn't. It absolutely wasn't.
No. What you get to a point where you're asking, you can flow whatever you want based on the velocity of the water. It's not that it won't flow. It is it effective for nozzle firefighters?
And you turn it into a stick of concrete at some point, right?
Well, yeah. And I mean, there's my CPR is confident pursue reality. I don't care what size line you're dealing with. It has to be adequate flow for the fire you're going to, but it has to be manageable by one firefighter, even if it's a big line, I can easily flow well over 300 on a 2.5 by myself, as can anybody else, if they know how to do a stationary knee pin and, a stationary hit with a big line. Versus somebody who goes to a ton of work, that needs a 250 or above flow, that needs mobility. That's what you evaluate. There is no one answer for everybody. It has to be based on what you go to and what your world is. And especially the biggest wild card is the limitations of people, right? There's not a boss out there that's listening right now that hasn't looked in the back seat knowing they're going to a job and been like, oh my God, we're going to freaking lose today. You got to take people into consideration here, because it's a big part of it.
So let me hit you with this. This is me digging in a little bit, and Joey Hayes just posted a comment that scrolled by, and everybody loves Joey Hayes. He's my favorite ginger in the whole world. Maximum efficient flow. So Steve, you guys rock the 2-inch, yes? What's your maximum?
Yes.
What you consider efficient flow?
240.
Okay. 240,
and I can overpump that by 10, and it's still absolutely manageable. I can go 250, and it's absolutely manageable when it's got smack to it. I mean, it's got velocity, it's got penetration, and again, it works for us. It's not my answers and me and Brian going back and forth between 225 and 2-inch doesn't mean a damn thing. You have to figure out what works for you.
Right.
Is there a case for both? I absolutely believe there is a case for both. But for us, the 2-inch with an 1.1/16, we have had really, really, really good success with it.
Especially pumping it at that 240 and not.
Yeah, 240 seems like a wheelhouse. I know some guys like it just a tad hot, around 250, and it's got smack. I mean, it's got smack to it.
You got to have some lead in your ass if you want to handle it and getting to a certain point.
Yeah, I mean, but is it any different than, you're looking at nozzle reaction, you're looking at 98 with a 2.5, right? At 265, 240, or like at 87, 89, something like that. So
all trade-offs.
10 pounds, right? That 10 pounds matters when we're 1 1/3, but all of a sudden it doesn't matter with bigger lines.
Well, let me take an advocate position there, only because Brian isn't talking, so let me speak his thing here. Sooner or later, the friction loss of the smaller line becomes a thing, right? So, if you're on an outlet and if you have compromised pressure, it's designed for a 2.5-inch line. You can't cheat that. You can't cheat mass. Can you come up with an alternative that makes sense for you based on the frequency of fires that you go to or the potential of fires that you may go to? Absolutely. Is there a day you still might get your ass handed to you? Of course there is. But without an understanding of, especially in a standpipe outlet, what it was designed to give you, the flow objective of that 250 gallons a minute, and how you might be able to cheat it a little bit, that comes with test and evaluation, right? And the majority of the people we're not talking about they're not worried about 2-inch or 2.25 or 2.5. They're using 1.5 inch or 1.75 inch with 100 psi fog nozzle. The problem's a little bit bigger than what we're talking about.
Beautiful. Brian, any rebuttal? I don't want to cut you off.
No, man, I'm good.
Brumley actually won, and he didn't win. He had Edwards do his dirty work.
Oh, speaking of Edwards, because this is the next question coming at you. Ask Steve and Jerry about the test with the deck gun at the hotel training. I don't know if this is a setup or not. I don't know. It's just.
No, I think that's a legit question.
Okay. I'm always worried, so thank you for saying that out the gate.
No, Steve, let me lead, and you can fill it in. Stevie had a concept, and we've been playing this. We played with it a little bit at H-Rock, did some testing too. Stacking some old style, longer stream shapers, and it was all we were doing an alternative attack portion of our track, and it was what kind of reach and elevation can you get if you pull up with a 3-man company or 3 firefighter company, on something that's really rocking fire to make a difference in a short period of time. Do you get some help? We're still tweaking it. There's no data to publish right now, but I think it's viable. Chicago's done a big water hit for a long time,
Forever.
And these ideas came from them. So it's just, how can we, the unfortunate thing, and this comes, I think that the complacency of the fire service, everybody, has a triple or a quad stack on their deck gun, and they keep that 1 3/8 or 1.5 tip on there for their nice quick hit, when they happen to be on the perfect angle on the A side, not blocking the truck to do a nice blitz attack, right? What do you do when it's more than that and you're by yourself, right? So, that's what we were playing with. It was an alternative attack. It was basically R&D, Steve, was it not? I mean, we're playing with
we were wrong several times.
We were, but that's how it all starts. That's how you get change. Yeah. So it was, how can we be better with a man or a staffing level compromised company on a fire where we need to make a difference up 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 floors. That's what drove it. I'm intrigued by the entire thing. Are we going much further with it? Absolutely. I can guarantee you that. We're already building trips on vacant high rises in Chicago and other cities, Stevie's cities in Columbus to get this thing on paper and make it work as a viable option.
I think Dennis also brings up that point of, the effectiveness of a stream is volume, placement, and then also velocity. To be able to punch through that. And I mean, that's really the additional thing that you guys are experimenting with when it's to a fixed apparatus. Your nozzle reaction isn't a concern, and I think a lot of that deck gun limitation was because of that phase in generation where those deck guns came off the rigs to those portable bases. And
those are the most dangerous thing in the world.
Yeah, they didn't want apparatus operators pumping those things at greater than 80 pounds nozzle pressure, but we leave them to the rig. We start getting into portable ground monitors, lower volume but better placed. Then we can get those fixed monitors on the rigs, not portable, and start to really, really crank up that nozzle pressure and start to improve that velocity as well. I'm excited about the direction that velocity play goes with the fire streams.
Yeah. Can I add something to that?
Bring it.
I'm sorry. No, I think it's a great point, but I think there's a caveat to that. Before you go out and start flowing your deck gun crazy numbers, make sure you do the research on whatever deck gun you have and don't exceed the max pressure of what your deck gun's rated at. That's number one. And number two, if you have an extended gun that extends out, you also have to realize that that has a max to it. So do your research as we have before we start just throwing crazy numbers at your deck gun. Well, Robertson and Herbst said it was okay. And Brush said velocity. Well, no, that's not what we're saying. What we're saying is do your research, understand what the max pressures are, and understand what you can and can't do with it before you just start throwing water to it. If that thing flies off there because you're over pumping it, guess what? You're going to kill somebody. So do your research before you start digging into this, because I'll damn well guarantee we did. And I like also my buddy Jimmy Davis, Captain Jimmy Davis from Engine 43 in Chicago, is also a huge part of this. And I think it's going to be some good things down the road with it.
Yeah, I think, I mean, you've heard me say it about 18 times so far. You got to do your homework here. We're messing with something is, guys are like, oh my God, it's like when I get on in 79, you've heard me say it 100 times. I learned 3 tip pressures, 50, 80, and 100. There was my world, right? 50 smoothbore appliances, 80 master streams, 100 fog tips. Go play fireman. You go to somebody and say, I'm going to pump that deck onto 150, and like, oh my God, you can't do that. You're going to break the fire engine. Well, you're not. You just have to understand the limitations of the equipment you're dealing with. But Brian mentioned that the biggest thing that drives this is, that whole break apart deck gun thing where, that 5 or 6 minute evolution. My God, I got to get up there. I disconnected. Where the hell's the ground base? Your hand jack into a Siamese or a Trimase or an LDH. That's what the RAM is for. Get rid of that shit. But now take a look. Let's take a look at that deck and say, what can we do it? How can we push it? Right? How can we overpump this thing to our advantage? And, Dennis's velocity, I love his work there, because it goes back to, this whole automatic versus smoothbore thing. The original concept of the automatic nozzle was designed for a master stream attack. You had a certain amount of water off the tank, and then you got a supply, so it opened up to allow you more volume, but it was still constant pressure. So you were only gaining a portion of it, and we haven't even gotten into investigating that, the differences between a stack tip or a smoothbore tip and a fog on a high pressure situation, because a fixed GPM fog over pump is going to exceed reach that an automatic would, because it's, this is where it becomes a thing, right? It becomes, what are our objectives? What are the limitations for the equipment involved? It becomes, okay, now we have an objective on paper. We're not just going to go out there and pump the shit out of this thing because somebody said it was a good idea. Because you could blow a deck off the top of an engine real easy, like Steve said. So the fire service will benefit from the results of all this approach, but the approach will be extremely methodical, and it should be.
Nice. Okay, a few things to come. Rob Ramirez said, this is the mega scrap that will set the bar for all future mega scraps, which is pretty cool because he was part of the original Alpha and Bravo mega scraps. So that's a really big compliment to you three. Very elite company.
Macho.
Macho AF. Swank, Charles Swank. I posted a new link. I pinned it. It is the actual GoFundMe.com that someone sent me, not just the one to the link. So remember, the goal is 82nd Airborne. Charles Swank, 100%, man. Click the link, give the money. It's a massive thing. Thanks for bringing it up. And then finally, moving on to DJ Stone, one of my favorite 2 brothers that come out of Florida. But he said, is it volume or location? And we kind of touched on this, so we can segue. What are the studies saying as opposed to your experience? Volume versus location, your experience versus the studies. And if you want clarification, please let me know. Both? One word answer from everybody?
Yeah, it's pretty open-ended.
Yeah, Dennis.
I mean, go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, Dennis sets it up. I mean, volume, placement, and velocity. I mean, it's just like yeah, I don't.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
You still.
The answer is yes.
Per minute. Well, more GPM than BTUs is the end of the day. I mean, that's placement is part of that. Velocity is part of that. It's all, and I'm going to dive into this for a second.
Go.
I think we have failed the last 5 years, 4 years, whatever it's been, as instructors. I think I know I have failed when we start talking about attack packages of water and everything else. We have absolutely not included, and I don't know why we did it other than we didn't dig deep enough early enough, the UL information about surface cooling and gas contraction. How is surface cooling and gas contraction? Are we throwing adequate volumes of water to do that? Because the studies have shown now that that is a direct increase in survivability. We have failed as instructors that are teaching this subject to not include that as part of the consideration of what we're doing. And I truly believe that we need to do a better job of if there's people out there listening, they go, well, what the hell is gas contraction? What is surface cooling? We haven't done a good job with that, Corley. And you know what? Key Stakes and those folks put the information there, and we didn't take advantage of it. That's our fault. We got to do a better job of that. And I think that directly goes into the project Brian's doing, which is unbelievable work. And Brian, talk about that, because that to me, this segues right into that of what he's trying to accomplish, and that's saving victims' lives.
Yeah, I mean, you're being a little hard on yourself by saying that we've failed people, man. It just takes time to process something and let it marinate a little bit. And I mean, and let's be honest, man, we are all excited, and it's a lot of fun to fight fire. But the bottom line is improving environments improves outcomes. And I think that's what we're truly realizing with the FireStream stuff is it's not just knocking down heat, it's taking away fuel, it's getting that lift. A lot of times we ask for ventilation, but really we just want lift, and maybe flowing water will cause that. So I agree, Steve. It's all in how we explain and articulate, well-placed, continuous fire streams improves environments, and improved environments improve outcomes both for us and them. So flow water, flow it frequently, flow it freely, let your freak flag fly.
Yes. Now I want to, because this is a topic, I'm throwing it right at Jerry. Integrating the science, man. Integrating the science to today's hands-on training. What are the hurdles for making this happen? The best way to make it happen. But basically incorporating the science and getting it out there, because Steve touched on it, Brian touched on it. Now I'm throwing it to you, Jerry. And here's the deal. I'm going to throw it to you, and then I am taking a 30-second, be right back. I call it the Todd Edwards break, because that's where it originally started.
So you just want me to see all the good shit while you're gone. I got it.
You got it. It's all you. You're the host now. You're the captain now.
We need one of those motorcycle catheters to sponsor the scrap. So you can just
Well,
I have a tiny bladder. It's not my fault.
I'm holding on as long as I can, because I'm not peeing until Brutch does.
Hey, that's a competition.
Curly, I got the ball. You take as long as you want, bro. Okay, this is all I want. Somebody get me a whiteboard and a marker. Yeah. The challenge, I think, and it goes back to what we said earlier about, what we kind of trialed in Columbus. We just recently did a foray over into the European market, where we did a hands-on event with a standpipe behind it. And one of the things of value, one of the reasons we wanted UL involved was, we're dealing with different target flows in other parts of the world that are different than ours. And I wanted a concentration myself on the total amount of water flowed on an event, as opposed to this obsession with the gallons per minute. All right. And Steve said it earlier, and I use this analogy, it's like a chess game. There is no check. You're either winning or losing. I get that. But what I think the value of the science is telling us, especially in a residential, compartments, a room and contents fire is that, okay? A creative truck guy with a can can probably hold a room. It's when it's more than that. But the value of the science and the approach to the seat, and then the culmination of the attack, it's the total water that was used, I think, that's a value that we have to understand. I don't, and this is where it's a double-edged sword for me personally, I don't want I don't want the end result of that knowledge being, oh, I can flow 95 gallons a minute and it'll be okay. But when you look at a well-off fire with multiple rooms and a heavy, heat-laden hallway for the approach, or a townhouse with multiple floors off, and the total water consumed for a knockdown is, under 400 gallons a minute, that's valuable information. But it comes down to placement and the other things that we're talking about. If you have the correct attack package, you can get water to the fire, you've got the win. The dangerous part, and that's where I value the science, right? The dangerous part of that is, some things that have happened historically, if everybody taken that as the cut and paste, is that's my solution for everything. It's like transition attack. Oh, that we're going to do that on everything. Well, no, it's a tactic that may be to your advantage at one point in time, but not necessarily in another. But the value of the science to me is to understand the total water amount needed to suppress the environment. So, all the years I was a boss or a chief, I was always looking for the radio comment I wanted to hear was knocked down, right? We got a thing knocked down. And, there's still a ton of work after that to do, but you need to control progressive fire growth. And, in a residential setting, that doesn't take as much water sometimes as you think it would. And I think the science supports that. My personal opinion is the overwhelming majority of dwelling fires are put out with a single line of tank water. You'll have multiple lines laid, and we're obsessed with this whole supply thing. And you got 5-inch and freaking helicopters and tanks and all this other shit. But excuse me, I went sideways there. It's tank water. Get it in the right spot and understand what the water can do. So I think the science is helping us to better understand that with total water flowed as opposed to GPM per minute.
Solid. Anybody want to add? Because I'm coming in not quite sure everything Jerry said.
Next question.
Next question is this. It comes from Justin West.
Did I cover it that well? Oh, my God.
You did. You did well.
Completionist. How would I go about changing a preset policy at my department? In my department, our calculations are done wrong, and we exert firefighters when one presses the preset. How should I approach this? Who wants it?
Paulie.
Get rid of Paulie, because that's your problem, was preset Paulie. Or his name could be Petey. Yeah, I attack presets all the time. It's complacency.
I find it funny that if I walked into a firehouse of 10 guys and I said, "Hey, you guys want an all electric fire engine?" They'd say, "Hell no, I can't trust that thing." But they'll step off the rig at a fire and hit preset and go to smoking their cigar or whatever the hell it's like, and just it's not reliable. You didn't set it. I mean, I'm not saying do a full on friction loss calculation, but know what you're going for and at least confirm that the preset is what your target is. Just pressing a button blindly is dangerous. So you want to fight the policy, then point to the safety and that side of it.
I love it. Westbrook Tier. We are looking at doing a tiller spec for our truck company. Next question. Any reason not to take off the pre-plumbed waterway for the aerial to get more sight lines for the tillerman?
I have no clue what you're talking about.
I'm with you. I'm
way out of my scope.
Anybody? I'm just throwing it.
Contact Rob Fisher at quintlover.com.
Solid. That's what you get. All right. Stephen Negley says, Orlando Fire Department just got rid of our 2.5-inch lines with the 1.25-inch tip, 328 gallons per minute. We now have the 2-inch with the 1 16th, 240 GPM. Is there an in-between line before we go to our RAM, 500 GPM? We love the 2-inch with the 1 16th tip. So we're back to the hybrids, but just getting your thoughts. Again, I'm catching up on a lot of audience questions.
In my opinion, and Brian, I'm sure you got a little bit different. That's okay. But in my opinion, if you're running a hand line 240 to 265, that's where you're at. And then we're going big water. I mean, if the fire is over that, if it's over that 260, 240, 265 range, you need a ram. Like we need a smack and then go get it, because obviously if we're beyond that scope of that 240 to 265 range, we need big water with velocity to hit it in the mouth and kind of give us a heads up, buy us some time. That's my 2 cents worth.
I think it's a little bit of a shame that happened, because I mean the 1.25 inch tip is a big boy. You know, I mean it's awesome. I think maybe they missed the opportunity, because we do feed our rams with the 2.5. We feed our rams with the 2.5, and we use the 1.5 inch tip. So, you know, maybe they could have gone to an 1 1/8 inch tip for attack on their 2.5, made it a little more comfortable, and then still use that diameter hose line to feed their rams. You know, we run the 1 3/16 and then the ram with the 1.5 inch, so we can go from that 300 to 600 range with that single hose line. But yeah, when you're in the 2 inch, man, I don't. You would be real hard pressed to even get that ram going at anything beyond.
I think what he's saying is there's something in between the 2 inch and the ram, and that's the 265. Not using the 2 inch for the ram. They're still using 2.5, I believe.
Oh.
Do you see what I'm saying? Like, is there something between 265 and 3.25 range they were? I don't see it. I mean, to me, beyond that, it's
not in a 2 inch line. I mean, the 2.5 to the 3/16 or the 1 1/8. But.
Yeah, that's what the 2.5 is for, right? You know, I got to interact with Orlando a little bit on some of their changes. You know, I think it was a mobility issue compared to what they were using. I don't think they sacrificed one for the other necessarily. You can go, you know, for the fire that needs it, the intermediate hose line, but does it replace the 2.5 or the 3? No, it does not.
No, it's solid. Manny,
I mean, that's, you know, we talk about, I think it's kind of interesting. We use that intermediate line terminology kind of misplaced. You know, I honestly think the 2.5 is probably by definition the intermediate line, because it can feed a hand line or it can feed in an appliance. You get into a 3 inch, it's not a hand line. You get into a 2 inch, 2.25, it's not going to feed appliances. The 2.5 will feed a hand line, it'll feed a FDC, it'll feed a ram. I mean, it's a utility player.
Maybe we need a better definition into the exponential engine approach.
He's gone. He said, for those that aren't aware, he said brush wins. Steve has to piss.
You know, I think all of this, you know, it's bantering. You know what it is. We all have our favorite things, right? But
right.
What it comes down to is do your homework. You know, don't copy somebody because you thought it was a really good idea. You know, and there's the double-edged sword of social media. We love it. It's great. It's changed the fire service. In most cases for the better, but the cut and paste solution, you can't bypass getting deep on this stuff. You know, Brian, go back to when you were on the job in Metro, right? And you reached out, you know, look at the quality of the people that you reached out to touch with that. You and E, right? It was Jay, it was Chief McGrail. And then did you take hook, line, and sinker what they said? No, you took it as a resource and you did work. And to this day, it stands as probably one of the best, most comprehensive studies I reference consistently, because you did the work. You utilized your network and you brought in resources to give you input, but you drew a conclusion that made sense for your job and your reality. Yes. So CPR was your mantra. You just didn't know what it was then. That's all. And now you know.
Yeah.
I will say this.
I absolutely agree, though. Brian's study, it was absolutely awesome. I mean,
Steve, you're talking, you're not on camera. What the hell's going on here?
Well, I'm in the fridge.
He's wireless. He's holding it. He's letting loose and talking to us all at the same time. To Jerry's point, it's a whole lot easier to hit like and get passionate about something. It's a whole lot harder to go out there and put the reps in to find out if it actually works.
Thanks. Yeah. Great summary. Because that's it, you know.
No, it is. And I gotta throw this one at you because I loved it when I saw it. It's from Jay Bonifield, one of my favorite people on the planet. He says, engine company related question. Does Brumley look better with or without the mustache?
That's
It's not about better or not. He looks like he can buy a beer with the mustache. He looks like he can.
I hope he's still in.
I mean,
here.
that's
pretty good.
Yeah. Brumley's the man.
Good.
I mean, he's
a good guy. I like Jonathan a lot. He's sharp.
Great dude.
Sharp.
All right, from Kyle.
At FDIC last year and did a phenomenal job.
From Kyle, Jerry, can you educate us on the CPR acronym you use when teaching? Because you've referenced it a few times. So go ahead for those who aren't familiar with it.
I can, and Kyle, thanks for the nod there. I'm happy to share that. It goes on the board and everything I do. It was on the side of the wall. We had a hotel down in Alabama that taught arranged. It was probably one of the best weeks of hands-on training. Brutal, 4 days straight of hands-on. But it's the confidence to pursue reality, and that means simply this: don't get caught up in the hose size of the day, the nozzle of the day, and all this stuff that impacts you from a marketing standpoint. The reality is you need an attack package that has adequate water for the fire that you're going to based on the heat release rates. It needs to be manageable by one firefighter, and it has to be spec'd to your weakest link. And what I mean by that is, I said it earlier, right? You can have your merit badge and being a badass, and you're still going to get your butt handed to you if you're not flowing enough water. Every single one of us on here and that's watching has been pushed out of a fire because we made a poor choice. If you set up your attack package based on your rock stars and the A team, sooner or later, it's going to have an impact. So the reality is, you have to spec it to your weakest link. And I get it. I don't care how big your job is. There's just not enough outlying stations to hide these people out. Sooner or later, they're coming to a fire, and they could be on your 6 that day. And, I always try and add a visual when I'm having these discussions in an instructional setting is, here you got a 1.5-story wood frame with a center stair, and there's 2 of you going in, and there's a kid at the top of the stairs and the fire's wrapping the stairway. So one makes the grab and one's going to make a hit on the fire and make the hole so you can get the grab. And they go full bail and they're rolling around like a weeble. That ends well for no one. So you can't spec your attack package to the rock star. The rock star can't be the rock star on open pavement. I got 43 years in a firehouse. I've never been to a freaking parking lot fire, but that's where we do all our testing. So let's consider that the range to get us accurate. But sooner or later, it comes down to the reality of who can open, bail, hold a line, and how does that relate to the people that you work with? And if it's, this is a very hard comment for people to accept. There's certain people that shouldn't be on a fire engine. Don't compromise your target flow based on the limitations of your people. Achieve the target flow based on the fires that you go to, and train them to that level, or understand that some people shouldn't be in that position to begin with.
Jerry, I want to add to that. When is the United States Fire Service going to stop changing? We're changing what we need to do, our minimum standards. We're dropping our minimum standards to our weakest link instead of bringing the weakest link up to the minimum standards. And that may take time. Everybody loves as a boss getting the stud out of the academy. That's great. That's not the challenge. The challenge is getting a weaker young firefighter that you got to bring up to that standard to meet the standard of your crew. And it's just easier to sit back behind a keyboard and change policy than it is to deal with an individual or an issue to bring them up to the standard where they need to be to succeed. And I think we set people up for failure because of that.
Well, I would agree, and I appreciate Kyle bringing up the chance to answer that question. So there it is in its epiphany, right? Is the confidence to pursue reality. And your reality is different than mine or anybody else's or Corley's or Brian's or whomever's. But if you don't take that time to understand your reality and you use someone else's solution and expect it to be as successful as it was for them, you're setting yourself up for heartache and injuries. So the CPR analogy is simply what it says. Pursue your own reality. Understand that somebody else's solution is not yours. 15/16 in FDNY with 4 guys on an engine and a boss that doesn't touch anything other than tell them what to do is not everybody else's reality. If you're running 2 or 3, do you want less? Yeah. Is less enough for the fires you go to? I don't know. Ask the question. Put it in your people's hands. Get them off the parking lot where everybody's a rock star. Put them inside and have them start climbing over, piles of laundry baskets and bookcases and things like we all go to in our real fires and see if it works. That's the reality I refer to when I say CPR. So people approach evaluation, trials and evaluations, unfortunately, sometimes very, with a lot of tunnel vision. They're not willing to look at themselves first before the engineer and equipment solution that makes sense for them.
Beautiful. Like there's so many people. There's your soundbite. Boom, boom. There's your sound. Excellent. Great point. Those are the kind of comments you're getting. And guys, we're over 300 comments on this scrap already. Just so you know. Manuel Baraja. Yes, absolutely. That's a nozzle drop. If you're wondering.
Somebody's got to build me one of them little meme things for that. I've been trying to get people to do that forever. Somebody making something as an XD.
Brush could build anything.
Onto the ground. That's my nozzle drop.
Manuel Barajas coming at you from Texas. He says, at Brian Brush. A lot of people don't actually call out a specific person, but they say at Brian Brush. And also, he's going to be the guest next week on the scrap. So a little shout out for the next week's scrap. Where do you rank the onboard flow meter as far as beneficial tools on the engine?
Can I first thank him for putting the foot on the gas? I mean, talk about a guy who's highly engaged, doing good stuff, and I mean, man, the future's right there in this dude in a lot of ways. So keep your foot on the gas, brother. Keep pushing. I think with all the stuff that NFPA requires, man, I hope in my lifetime or a near future that onboard flow meters for all active discharges is a mandate.
Amen. Amen.
It's absolutely disgusting to me to think how many firefighter near misses, line of duty deaths, and more so civilian fatalities have been the result of poorly interpreted static pressures and chasing pressures. And we have the technology, we have the awareness. Onboard flow meters should be an industry standard on any of our discharges. So that, I don't know what else to say about that.
I think that's pretty clear, cut and dry. Anybody wants to? I mean, I heard amens from Steve. Go ahead.
Well, I think you go into that a little farther, Brian. You go back 10, 15 years when electronic valves started and inline flow meters started on trucks. They weren't very good. Water and electronics don't mix. Well, guess what? We were teaching up in South Bend, and we went to Elkhart's factory, and Jerry took me through the whole new valve. And I'm looking at this thing compared to what you saw 10 years ago. There is nothing that's even remotely the same. Being able to calibrate these things with a magnet. And it's like, I mean, everything about this makes sense. And I support your comment 110%, brother.
I mean, we were lucky, when we did our nozzle study that far back, we purely had onboard access to flow meters because it was part of the pre-plumbed foam, and it's so, I mean, I don't know. It's something that I'd love to push for anybody on the apparatus NFPA group. Definitely public comment time, push for flow meters on discharges.
Yeah, I would champion that as well. I made a comment on one of the season 1 of Brass Tacks Hard Tacks, and I had gotten some negative feedback on the comment I made when I said that the American Fire Service was pressure obsessed and flow ignorant. But that's how we were thumbprinted. We're still, unfortunately, in many academies taught this day to be pressure obsessed and flow ignorant. Pressure doesn't put out fires. It's an energy that delivers a flow that's required. Take the next step, make yourself a better firefighter. If the job doesn't teach you and you don't grab the passion to be an engine nerd or whatever, just do enough more of your own personal understanding that guarantees the fact that you're going to go home at your end of your shift to your family. You know, I unfortunately there's many fire departments I think that don't provide enough training for you to get that comfort level. That's what drove me early on. So there's nothing wrong with being that firefighter. With all due respect for rank and seniority, it's okay to ask questions about things that are integral to you going home at the end of your tour or your fire. That's a reality.
Kyle Romigus asks, Steve, if you could choose a topic for someone to talk about that has not been covered on Brass Tacks yet, what would it be and who would speak on it? Alive or not? Because I like that last bit.
All right.
Wow. I was, okay, so don't say a word, Brush, but I was old enough to be at FDIC for Andy Fredericks, Don't Worry About the Nozzle Kid speech, his keynote. And I would love to hear his dissertation of Big Drops of Water live. I would love to hear that live as a lecture, not an article. And I never get tired, honestly, of listening to Bill Guston. We were with him at H-Rock, sat through his class again, and I still took 2 pages of notes, and I probably sat through that same program 10 times. We're in, Brian and I, Jerry, I'm not sure if you were with us, but we slid up in his room and had a drink with him the last night, and he's got us cornered in the kitchen. And what's he talking about? He's talking about how dangerous these ground monitors are, pulling them off the top, the same thing we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
He's had a couple launch. We got to stop these, Stevie. Gosh damn it. Da-da-da-da-da. That guy has forgot more than I'll ever know. And I'm blessed to call him friend, and he answers the phone when I call, because I call him with a question, and I say, Captain, it's probably a dumb question. Shoot. Okay, now let's go. I mean, that's just Ray McCormick, him, and Andy Fredericks. Any of those 3 guys on any of those topics. Bill with systems. Ray is so versatile with the high-rise stuff. He's taught me more about high-rise stretches and adaptive high-rise stretches and make things work in not so great situations. Everybody's got their plan A when they go into a high-rise or even a regular fire. How often does your plan A work, Corley?
Right.
Usually, no. Right? Like being okay with saying this isn't working. We got to change gears and relaying that, hey, we're going to plan B now. We're going to plan B, and that's what's going to happen. So those 3 guys to me are the guys that I really, truly, truly, truly look up to as true mentors. And again, like I said, I was fortunate enough to be there for that. It was absolutely impactful in my career.
Love it. Hard to top, but I'll throw it at you. Brian, go.
Man, I've certainly been influenced by a lot of guys along the way, as far as early Fire Nuggets guys, people who we've interacted with through traveling and training and everything. When you say dead or alive, obviously we can bring back the legends, but I mean, I think when you have people who've really put kind of fingerprints on the modern fire service and the new approach, and I truly hope at some point we can convince Aaron Fields to get involved in this. Just a extremely intelligent,
unbelievably
organized guy. I mean, from the mechanics to the mind. I know it may not be their style, but I hope that going forward we have a little bit of a record of his imprint on the fire service today.
I love it. Jerry?
Well, from someone who's integrally involved in
you get to make these decisions.
Who goes up for tax hard facts? These are not easy decisions to make. There's a lot of things to take into consideration. First and foremost being the broad demographic of the fire service as a whole, and to lend credence to that, every time I'm in the field and I do, I have the opportunity or I'm blessed to have the chance to instruct people. I do a class demographic of how many are 0 to 5 years, or 5 to 10, or 10 to 15, 15 and 20 plus. And in the hydraulics arena and the effective fire stream, I find consistently as many people that are on the 0 to 5 that are 20 plus, which tells us a lot about the relevance of the subject matter. So, Chris and I, basically co-creating this entire thing, we have to look extremely deep into our target audience, which is extremely wide demographic, like I said, but it has to be relevant. And you have to have people that can appeal to every demographic within the fire service. Those aren't easy decisions to make. So you want people that are extremely well experienced in the disciplines. It's like when we did, the standpipe series, you're bringing in the gurus, but are the gurus from places where the majority of people work, or is it more urban setting? It's like, oh my God, the Denver fold versus the FDNY folds. That's right up there with smoothbore versus fog. So you don't want to play into that. We're not looking for collateral that makes people, click in and buy in because of that. We're much deeper than that. The entire concept of the series, obviously, and I hope most people realize this, wasn't necessarily designed to sell a product. It's designed to be a resource, a white paper resource, but in a virtual format. When you can add senses to something to try and relate a message to someone, you increase their comprehension, significantly. That's why we went video. We won't get too deep into brass tacks, hard facts. That's another scrap for you, me, and Chris. But who goes on there and who could benefit? We're open to ideas. Send them to us. Send me an IM or a text. We'll look at it. There's a lot of balls in the air when it comes down to who's on and what our objective is. Brian, I'm glad you brought up the Aaron thing. The legacy, the commitment to things that have been game changers to the fire service to us is extremely important. We tend to get caught up in minor details now. It's like, the 2 versus 2.25 versus 2.5. When I look back and, one of my biggest battles in the 80s was, God, my God, can I get a hood and a pair of bumper pants? I'm wearing hip boots and a long coat. That's the reality factor, and you have to tie all that into it. So it's a challenge. We're open to it. There's not a textbook approach to who we put on, but we're open to ideas. Send them to us.
Love it, man. There you go. 3 different answers, and very solid. Kyle Romigas, again, I love this guy. So he said, Brian, can you take us through the evolution of the Fire by Trade hose strap, the addition of the new blue strap, and where the people can get them?
I like the blue strap a lot.
And I'd love to, but I'd rather not talk product. I'd rather
that's fair.
To the hose straps came out of a need to modify the Minuteman to make sure that deployment could be an option for poorly spec'd rigs, and allowed us to throw it sideways, do all this type of stuff. So it wasn't mine. It was a West Metro thing. When we went, after we did the hose loads, after we did the nozzle study, we did the hose loads, and they were born out of that. But I appreciate you, Kyle. But
I will say this, Brian. I love your deference. I love your sidestep. But I will never bring up something in a question that doesn't bring value to the American Fire Service. So please understand that. So no, the strap does.
I want to add something to that. A lot of people don't understand that Brian Brush and West Metro were the ones that changed this hose load. Everybody else, like myself, he showed it to me. Well, we started playing with it. Then we started adapting it. Then we started tinkering with it. Then we took it vertical. Then we did this and we did that. This was Brian Brush and his guys at West Metro started this thing. And all we did was latch on once he showed us. And we've worked together with it. I've been a steward of it ever since. We've run it since I found it. And you're too damn humble sometimes, Brush, because it's a game changer. You know, when we're teaching this class that Jerry was talking about, all engine all day, where we're running through every discipline of an attack package, the stretch, and then the application with the science with Keith Stakes and Ray with the UL stuff. It's amazing that at the beginning, I challenge students that by the end of the day, I want you to have the line on the ground, charged, face piece hood, helmet, gloves through the door in under 1 minute. Under 1 minute from the time we get out. We're getting stretch times just on a basic forward stretch. 15 to 20 seconds is an average. They're calling for water. That doesn't happen without a system. And the system you came up with effing works. Yeah. There's no other way to put it. It works, and then we modified it. We played with it. You know that. We've played with it a ton. And I suggested anybody who's out there that uses it, modify it for your rig, for your district, for your neighborhood, right? There's so many things you can do with this load. Make it work for you. Here's the basics of it. Now make it yours and own it.
Love it, man. No, 100% love it. We're an hour and a half, and I know we got a couple East Coast guys, and I got Brian who's in my backyard, so that's okay. I can keep him up late. Not the point. My point is, I love this question here. It comes from Jay Bonifield, again, one of my favorite people on the planet. I want to hear this because I love this question. Interested to hear these guys' thoughts on the UL multifamily burns where the flowing and moving 1 3/4 advance stalled out and had to have an exterior hit soften things before they could finish it off. Any thoughts, changes you've made, or experiences you've had in this arena since an exterior hit while a crew is making an interior advance can be slightly taboo? Right?
Say that again. You cut off. We slightly what?
Slightly taboo.
Okay.
Like, don't hit it from the outside while the crew's inside. You know what I'm saying? But now let me hear it. I want to hear it. It's a good question.
A little bit of that is line of sight. I don't think that water application from the outside was at all in line with the approach.
Could I add to that, Brian? I think this opposing streams thing that everybody freaks out is a bunch of shit. I think it's the dumbest shit I've ever heard. Where are the streams going? Line of sight is exactly what I mean. We have a tendency to burn off a lot of roofs on apartment buildings. I'm a big fan of, if the fire department's here, it's running the roof, it's in the attic, blah, blah, blah. Come from the opposite side. Hooks and water go a long way, using the reach of your stream and angle. Truck opens this up, first line holds it. They go 10 feet, they do it again, the second line's following the truck, boom, now they're holding that. And you march your way right down. Well, I've heard people say, well, you can't do that. It's opposing streams. My stream is up here. Like that has absolutely zero to do with the stream that's on the main body of the original fire. So I agree with you, Brian. Line of sight of everything on opposing streams. Don't just take opposing streams as the worst thing in the world. Where am I in proximity to the exterior hit? That's my question. How close am I to where that exterior hit's coming in? And if it's that bad, I'm probably not going to mind it a whole lot. If I'm getting chased out of there that I can't move, I'm probably not going to mind water coming in. Yeah, it's not going to be comfortable, but at the end of the day, if I'm getting chased out of there, you got to do something. It's again, rocket science. Gallons per minute versus BTUs. If you don't have enough, you need more. And that's the only way you're going to make it.
Yeah. Improved environments, improved outcomes. You know, if we got to take multiple approaches, but I think that old school thinking, it was more about opposing hose lines versus streams. Now you give your stream a target.
Is it really just education?
Well, it's to give a firefighter perspective here, which is, you know, my value here is more as an SME and the effective fire stream. But in my experience as a firefighter and a boss, it's a tactic that's utilized. It's like coordinating, you know, interior attack with ventilation. You know, it's like the boss on a line talking to the OV. It's a tactic that can benefit you. And if you're going to VES or a hot room before the doors close, a quick shot at the ceiling can make your goddamn day, without a doubt. That doesn't mean that the interior team isn't pushing the stairs on the inside, but get your shit together and make calls based on the situation that's presented to you, and stop looking for one thing is not for every fire. It's based on the competence of the person that's calling the shots at a fire and coordinating something that's going to benefit the objective.
Corley, to add to that, it's awareness. If I know where Brian's operating on a hose line, common sense prevails a lot in this, guys. Communication and common sense. If I know where he's operating and I'm coming from the other side, I'm in my nozzle guy's ear, and I'm telling him, hey, you got a crew operating down to the right. Make sure we're aware of that. I think we're so short sometimes as company officers. Like, you can use your brain a little bit and make some tactical decisions from the inside, even if we're coming from the other way. If you're aware they're there, take note of that and do the right thing.
Love that, man. The coordination, communication. Oh, man. Okay, I want to throw this at you. And we're winding down. We're pushing 2 hours. I really want to throw some more stuff at you. But Kelsey Trotty said, a question I get a lot from others. Thoughts on mixing high-performance hose like a Sniper with a lower quality hose like an Eco 10. Have had several people ask me if there's a way to mix the two with a low-pressure nozzle. Just thoughts. I just like the question because it's kind of out of left field, but a lot of people who don't understand packages and putting them together, it's just good information. Go.
Let me lead with this one, only because I did it in my Wally house and quite successfully. We had some crap hose, and when Troy D first came out, we went into 3/4 for the lead length, primarily driven by finances. We couldn't afford to do it all. The objective was to get better performance in the nozzle position on the inside. Majority of our work is residential wood frame, so a single stick inside was a game changer. We were looking for capability with the nozzle firefighter by themselves. It worked. I think it's something that should be considered. Sometimes it's financially driven. The big line, we ended up going, I tried a 2.5 as a game changer with respect to hand feel and that type of thing. But the lead length being something different than your full complement, whether it's a 150, a 200, whatever your pre-connects are, however you stretch, can be a game changer. So, the reality is what's going inside and where do we need it to work? Does it take away the ability that we got to be mindful of, kinks outside? No, it doesn't. Everybody should be looking for a kink. I don't care what your rank is. Never walk by a kink. They kill firefighters. But to us, it was a game changer. Eventually, we filled out the entire stretch with it, based on finances. But the lead length inside makes sense to us.
I think it should be only done for a period of attrition. It's just that's it. You shouldn't purposefully be mixing hose qualities, especially in the smaller diameter. If you're in the same diameter line, you get a couple lengths, put them behind the nozzle. I'm all for it, but. And you see swings in the smaller diameter lines of as much as 10 psi in friction loss. Guys will load them however. The thermal protection at the higher quality hose. So don't be purposeful about this because dudes are messing around with it on the internet. Determine what you need to go to. And if it takes you longer to phase the other stuff out, it takes you longer to phase the other stuff out. But we don't want to delay putting in a good line that's going to be inside. But
yeah, and make them another color. Make it obvious.
Right.
You can't afford the mistake.
Yes. Beautiful. All right. Vigilante question of the week comes from Jim Platt. This comes from the Vigilantes. He says, our agency is starting down the rabbit hole of hose, nozzles, and attack packages with recently purchasing the Elkhart flow meter kit to start with. He says, where do we go from here? I do not want to exhaust the members with data, but I want them to understand what we are finding and doing. So how do you balance like that ate up being nerded out and having the tools to do it with getting guys who aren't and just buying in?
Go to a Know Your Flow class and get the terminology, get the format, like find some structure to it so you can be consistent and articulate it well.
Yeah.
Don't forget brass tacks too. I mean, brass tacks has everything and anything on it for reference.
It's a huge resource, but I think, I mean, this is a large part of what I do for a living, right? Define what your objectives are. If your objective is a target flow with a certain nozzle reaction or below, then that becomes the objective, and build your trials based on that. You've purchased the tool, okay? You've purchased the Mythbuster. You've got the gauges. You've got the flow meter. That's not going to give you a solution. That's going to help you get to it. You'll have the ability to just quantify loss where it needs to be, identify accuracy where it needs to be. It's not the tool that's going to bring you to the conclusion. It's a piece of what's going to bring you to the conclusion. Accuracy is incredible, but I teach a class that's solely based on nothing. I've had to structure a committee for change and objective and subjective input and benchmarks and such. So define what your objective is. Clearly differentiate the difference between objective and subjective input. One does not replace the other. The objective and the data points that you gain towards the objective need to be supported by subjective input. Be very careful how you structure your committee. In my experience, you want a good breadth. You want new hard chargers on their phone, constantly challenging. You definitely want a couple dialed in engine bosses. You definitely want some senior people. Breadth in that committee is going to make sense when you start to present a case for change. The PowerPoint package can be pretty, but you might want to choose the senior man who's got some relationship with, the higher ups to make the presentation based on his subjective support of it. So it's much more than you think. Be methodical, approach it correctly. Don't have it be slight, in my opinion, don't have to be slighted one way or the other. Otherwise, not all senior, not all junior. If it's all junior, hard charging guys, and you present to the senior people, you're going to lose.
Right. I love that. I love the balance of it. All right. I'd like to ask people, and you guys get one each. I've never limited books because I love books, but I'm saying one each. One book that you think firefighters should be reading. It does not have to be a firefighter book. I don't care where it comes from. It could be a Agatha Christie mystery novel for all I care. I want to hear what books you think firefighters should be reading. I'll start with Jerry.
Well, this is a tough one. It's not a fire book. I would suggest that people, and I'm speaking from the perspective of somebody who looks to create change or influence people and become a boss and have a personal plan to exceed themselves in the job. How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie will teach you a lot about having discussions with people and the transfer of enthusiasm that's needed to bring people to a common place of thinking. So that would be the book.
Dude, it's one of my top five. One of my top 5 books of all time. I love that book. So the other two have quite a bit to live up to. Steve, I'll go to you next.
Not a fire book either. I think I threw all those out the last time I was on, but We Were Soldiers Once and Young, a Vietnam era book about the Ia Drang Valley, and it's Hal Moore. And if you want to talk about leadership and how he embraced the worst possible time and how he kept his folks together doing it, that is an incredible book. It's not a hard read, but it is a read. Once you pick it up, you won't put it down. Yeah. It's an incredible story, number one, that's true. But number two, it's true. He's got some true leadership nuggets in there.
There you go. So you got Boom, and Brian. What do you got?
Man, I love to read and write and all that stuff. And I could give you a million books, but the book that made me love to read again was about 15 years ago when I was recommended to read Deep Survival. That one kicked it all off for me. So
Gonzalez, yeah.
Yeah, I read that one, and then I just wanted to read constantly after that. So that's a good catalyst book for a lot of deep dives on a lot of different stuff.
I love it.
I'm so glad you asked that question, because out of the entire panel, there wasn't a single tactical book about the fire service. Let's understand that we're all just people.
We're a bunch of nerds. Yeah.
Well,
We are that.
my closing comment, because I know we're headed to a hard stop, is, especially on the instructional circuit, you get these people, I call it the celebrity chef syndrome. Sometimes you just get a little too much into who you think you really are. Bottom line is, we're all just firefighters. Some of us excel in a certain area and have a subject matter expertise that we've challenged ourselves to be a resource for. But really, when it comes down to it, other than the tactical application of things, what's our biggest single resource? It's our people. And if you don't know how to deal with people, you're going to fail, especially as a boss. I mean, and everybody on this thing right now is a boss, or has been. You've had good days and you've had bad days, have you not?
Right on. Okay. I'm going to close this out strong. Normally I do 5 questions for firefighters. Mega Scraps, they don't really, you got 3 guys, 5 questions, and 15 questions. It turns into a long, drawn out thing as everybody.
That's another 2 hours.
No, absolutely. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to say each person gets, you got 3 people here, so you only get to ask one person one question. And I'm going to do it. I'm going to just do it alphabetically. I don't even know what's that. That's a B. I'm going off first names J and S. So Brian, you could ask one of these other guys one question, and they got to answer.
Oh, no, come on.
And then it's Jerry gets to ask one question, and then Steve gets to ask. So it's I don't know. I've never done this before. It's completely spur of the moment. Brian Brush, you could ask one question as we close out Mega Scrap Charlie.
Steve, what are you going to miss the most when you retire?
Oh. I don't know. Probably the guys. I have such good people. They have absolutely bought into everything I want to do. They love it. They continue it, and probably just, working in the low income area, helping people that truly need help every day. And is there bullshit with that? Absolutely. But we really get to help people every day. And that I'll probably struggle the most with, is not taking runs where you're truly helping people. I would say that's the most.
I will say this. Hey, here's the other thing I didn't add. It needs to be a question where the answer is completely their opinion, and the points are arbitrary, assigned by me. Max point, Steve Robertson. Thank you. Jerry, your choice.
Oh, God, this is dangerous for me. I'm not going for Stevie because Ken Brush spell Petaluma?
What?
Ken Brush spell Petaluma?
Yes.
Department you work for. No, that was planted. This is a tough question for me. I'm going to Brian. Only because I admire you for your approach to being a resource to the fire service has evolved as your rank has gone up, and you and I have had countless late night Marlboro conversations about this. I admire you for you being able to instruct and present within your personality, and that's very important to me. And someone who is a student of the psychology of instruction, as I am, I know how important that is. I guess my question would be, when you do hit a point where you walk away, can you really walk away, or is there an after?
What Steve said.
No, man, I'm hoping to be like an asteroid and just freaking go from bright and shiny to zero.
It's scary.
I'm
I'm not kidding you right now, fellas. I got like 3 years left. It's scary. It's a legit thing that's in your head every day going to work.
Yeah,
Man, I don't know. I think I'm just learning how to learn. I think I'm just learning how to reach people. I mean, you go through these evolutions, and the world is changing. The students are changing. The information is changing. The environment's changing. So I mean, I just hope that I'm, like I said, in it, doing it, speaking it. I mean, we saw Gustin. I mean, there is plenty of examples of keeping the foot on the gas until your last day. The shit thing that we've realized is it could be tomorrow. Hopefully it's 30 years from now, but yeah, keep firing your life, baby, and you're at home and at work.
I'm not sure I appreciate the question, Jerry, as far as the introspection involved, but max points 100% and on the answer and the question. So final question, Steve.
And Brian, is legitimate, and I respect the hell out of you and what you do, and I'm blessed to call you a friend. I truly mean that. What drove you to dive as deep as you have into the firefighter rescue survey, and what got your mind going? Because I believe it was absolutely brilliant for you to tie that back to the war years, and we really haven't made change. And I'd love to hear that, because I'm telling you, I think you're onto something that is absolutely earth-shattering to the United States Fire Service when they get a hold of it, because I think you're 100% right, and you're 5 years ahead of everybody else being right and changing everything and how we operate.
Yes.
And I'm just curious what started you down that path, and what drives you, brother, because I'm telling you, it's good stuff.
I mean, the rescue survey wasn't me. It was guys who wanted to know. It's just curiosity, and the rescue survey is all about how rescues are going down and how we can be better with them. And what's amazing is now we're to a point where even the search studies reference in it, and I mean it is great information, and I latched onto it. I got involved in it and started to think how impressive it was. But what stuck with me was well how many are we doing? And I think that's the absolute heartbreak is we can correlate safety. We can say that citizens are safer today because we're going to fewer fires or whatever, but you can quantify saves. And I think that the future of our existence and our staffing and everything is saying that there's a perception that we make a difference every day in our communities, but until we put it down on paper and start showing people, we really can't prove it. So I hope that we can flip the narrative on fewer fires, meaning that everybody's safer. I hope that we can flip the narrative that fewer fires means we don't need to pay attention to them. I think the Warriors, they didn't have the ability to go inside and do what we can do today. And all these blessings of equipment and technology and information, I think if we frame it right, we can really start putting it to work and making a difference. So,
boom. And there it is, man. That's what I call max points for, I don't know what mega scrap, the mega scrap, the guests ask each other questions, whatever you want to call it. We're going to figure out a cool thing, because that's the first, I actually thought of that. Yeah, that was one of the coolest things I've ever been a part of, because I love you guys asking each other those questions and answering them. 100.
I'm
holding back a little, Steve. I got to save the big.
I know. I didn't mean that. I didn't want to.
We're talking about walkout music right now.
It's gonna be FDIC, baby.
Hell yeah! Hell yeah!
Keynote brush.
Hell yeah!
Brian, be careful. You don't want to give it all up. There might be, you might be the first times 2 on fucking Brass Tacks Hard Facts. Oh, excuse me, I'm not allowed to do that. Were you?
Hell yeah,
Brian? Were you not the first?
You know what?
I think
I think the connection's breaking up.
Yeah.
Let's get back to scrap.
Yeah, I got static. I'm sorry I didn't copy that. I was canceled.
Sorry.
We're
All right.
Can't copy. Can't
Officially,
copy,
170 scraps in the books. I'll go real fast. Thank you, Jerry Herbst, Brian Brush, Steve Robertson. Unbelievable, man. Unbelievable. I would do this every week if they were this good. If the audience wants to get a hold of you, best way to do it, Jerry, go ahead.
Say that again. What was the question?
Best way for the audience to get a hold of you, reach out to you.
Any social media platform, Facebook, I am, Instagram. I'm on them all. God forbid, worst thing, get on the Elkhart Press website and find my email. Reach out. Our people are extremely approachable because that's the way we work. I'll give you the only company plug I'll give you the entire night is we're all about interacting with our end user people. So reach out. We're there for you. If it's not going to be me as a resource, I will put you with the right person.
Love it. Brian, people want to get a hold of you. How do they do it?
BrianEBrush@gmail.com.
Right on.
Oh,
That's
people,
Eugene.
God,
Brian Eugene, just so you know. Brian Eugene Brush. All right, Steve.
Stretching for Success on Facebook or CFD Robertson at gmail.com. Also CFD Robertson on Twitter. Again, enjoy. I never not enjoy talking to these guys. We have a great time together, and we're all blessed to be able to travel the country and meet great people and hang out and we try to solve every problem in the United States Fire Service every time we're together.
Really, the only disappointment I had in the whole Mega Scrap was the lack of mom jokes. Like, that really is it.
Well,
so
we'll
work on it.
My bio,
We're going to work on it.
Your pre-banter in the text would have excluded me because I was not hopping in on that. That just
Yeah.
started right off the bat.
Corley, when you asked for my bio, I said just ask Brush's mom.
Your mom don't scrap.
That's what I'm talking about. There it is. Okay, so I'll wrap it up. The Vigilantes are getting after it. If you want to be a part, the 7th forum is coming up. Go to firehousevigilance.com. You can join up there, be a part of it. This month, it's really cool. We're discussing my book, The 9 L's. But it's a blast. If you want to be a part of it, go to firehousevigilance.com and sign up today. Get your invite to the Vigilantes. The scraps and the killer lineup of 2022 continues. Mega Scrap Charlie is over. I'm telling you, man. This was amazing. We got to plan this again, man.
Nozzle drop.
Nozzle drop.
Let me drop. I'm gonna give you one thing on the way out.
Okay.
These guys that we've been through the war years, challenge yourself now to transfer that information before we're gone. That's our responsibility. Leave it better than we found it.
Can't knock it, man. Next week, Manuel Barajas is next up, followed by David Pruitt. Bringing the new year. I'm excited to say the least. If you want to get stickers, go to Amazon, rate the 9 L's book, send me a screenshot of you giving it 5 stars. Don't give it 4, don't give it 3. If you give it 5, send me a screenshot. I'll give you a sticker pack. It's a bribe, 100% a bribe. And I will send it to you. Also, rate the podcast. Rate the podcast, send me a screenshot. I'll send you stickers. I promise you. Other than that, like Keyhoes, Affordable Drill Towers, MV Fire Rescue, and yes, man, all sponsors. I love it. My brothers, thank you for being such a phenomenal part and making a great Mega Scrap. Jerry, Steve, Brian, thank you so much.
Thank you, Corley.
Audience, Merry Christmas, fellas.
We're out. Yeah, enjoy the holidays, man.
Love you all. Audience, you make the scrap magical. Thank you so much for tuning in live. I love you all. Remember, mutts don't scrap. I hope the tone stays silent unless it is burning. Everybody, stay safe out there.